Mr. Pop Culture Phenomenon here, and today I am putting out another Popcast video for you guys. For all of you that do not know what a Popcast is, it is a pop culture podcast. It's a play on for words, so you'll get used to it. So in today's video, it is titled, The One Thing DC Has Over Marvel. So before we dive in, always remember to like, listen, and subscribe below. And until then, take care. Now let's get started. Marvel, as we all know, has the heroes, the high-profile actors, the 20-plus movies in the MCU expanding over 2 decades. This content that they've put out has grossed them billions in revenue. Now they've been exclusively bought out by Disney, and all their content is featured on Disney Plus. And just when we thought it was over because of Avengers Endgame, we're just now entering Phase 4 of the MCU. Now, in Phase 4, they're going to be coming out with 5 new movies and 5 new TV shows. And as far as I am aware of, the TV shows are going to be exclusive on Disney Plus. And that's kind of the one thing that DC has been doing for a while, is putting out TV shows. You don't really see too many of the Marvel TV shows out there. And along with that, you can basically say right now at the moment that Marvel definitely is at the top of their game. And what's kind of scary about it is that they're only going to be getting better. So now we must wonder, how can DC even compete with this? What are their strengths? What separates them from the rest? And I pondered this for a second, and then I kind of came to the conclusion, well, the one thing that DC does have over Marvel, and this is a hands down no-brainer, is DC's bad guys are on a whole nother playing field in comparison to Marvel. Marvel is known about the high-profile actors and their movies, and they always sell the hero. DC, you're kind of getting a little bit of both, but in some of their movies, the villain really does actually outshine the hero, and a lot of their antagonists really stand out. So in today's video, I am going to be sharing my top 5 DC villains and just a quick summary on as to what makes them great. So let's dive right in. So with number 5, I am going to go with Two-Face. So Two-Face, also known as Harvey Dent, which appeared in Detective Comics issue number 66. Now, Harvey Dent, prior to becoming Two-Face, was a bright and upcoming district attorney for Gotham City. And during his days as an attorney, he had a court case against their mobster, Sal Maroni. And basically, in the middle of the trial versus Sal Maroni, because he knew basically he was moments away from getting booked for life, he inadvertently or purposely threw acid chemicals on Harvey Dent's face, which left his whole left side atrociously scarred for the rest of his life. Now, this also, after a period of time, led to a lot of psychological issues. And with those psychological issues mounting up for Harvey Dent because of the atrocious attack that happened to him, he also became criminally insane. Now, the 2 facts that make him a notable bad guy is he leaves it up to chance of whether or not he kills his victims by flipping a coin heads or tails. But even more notable than that is the fact that Harvey Dent was a bright DA detective for Gotham City who stood up against the gangsters and mobsters. And he was a light of hope that couldn't be bought or corrupted. And even goes to show you that the city of Gotham is a clear example of how even the best of us can turn out corrupted in the end. So it was kind of a good guy story and sad how it happened, but my number 5 top villain in the DC universe is Harvey Dent. So, staying along with the Batman series, number 4, I'm going to go with the Riddler. So, the Riddler, aka Edward Nygma, first appeared in the Detective Comics issue 140, and that was in 1948. He was pretty unique because he was a bad guy who loved games and puzzles to outsmart and taunt the authorities, and always had the ability to stay 10 steps ahead of his opponent. He for sure in the Batman series was one of Batman's top 5 villains, and he had the power of staying power. He wasn't just like a bad guy that was just a one and done. He managed to be around for quite some time. But what made him great was the Riddler had the ability to scheme, plot, stay elusive, and he wasn't a bad guy that didn't use like aggression or tactical violence to destroy his opponents. He had charisma, flair, and was kind of an artist at his craft. Basically, the definition of the Riddler was true definition of a criminal mastermind. And that's kind of what sums up the Riddler. And that's why I place him at number 4 on my list. Now diving right on in to number 3, I'm going to go with Black Adam. Now, Black Adam is basically Shazam 3 or 4 cycles before the well-known Shazam that we all know. And he was basically an ancient Egyptian human who was chosen by the wizard Shazam to be the new Shazam of Earth and be its protector. And basically, when the wizard chose him, at first he saw that Black Adam was stated as being one of the first human beings of moral purity. And once he kind of got his powers, he eventually became corrupted over time. Now, the one thing about Black Adam is the original Shazam draws his power from the Greek gods, but Black Adam's power stems from the ancient Egyptian deities, which, as we all know, really were huge gods in that time, especially during the Egyptian Empire, like 3000 BC. And when he stemmed and he kind of became his true peak form of the high form of Shazam, he actually wanted to overthrow the Egyptian pharaoh. And he actually did. And when he did overthrow the Egyptian pharaoh, he assumed Egypt's throne. And because he used his powers for bad and not good, the wizard Shazam banished him to the farthest star in the universe. And literally, it took him thousands of years to fly back to Earth. And later on, when he flew back to Earth, he realized that the wizard had a new chosen Shazam champion to protect Earth. And this is kind of the setup story that leads into Black Adam that all of you know, which should be coming out, I believe, in the year 2022. So this is kind of just like a small plot and a storyline behind Black Adam. But yeah, he's a former Shazam chosen champion that went rogue. And he got banished, and it took him thousands of years to fly back to Earth. And it's kind of cool that when he comes back, we got today's current Shazam versus the Shazam from the past. And and it's so weird too, because he's serving Greek gods and deities where he draws his magic and power from. And then the Shazam that we know serves from the Greek gods. So it's pretty cool just to see kind of the alternatives of 2 different worlds. But I got Black Adam ranked number 3 in my top 5 DC supervillains. Number 2, Now, this is going into the Flash universe, and it is Black Flash slash Zoom. So he is known as Hunter Zolomon, who was a metahuman speedster from Earth 2. And years after watching his father kill his mother, there was a particle accelerator explosion, which is the same thing that happened to Flash on our world. But his explosion of the particle accelerator was mixed with dark matter, which gave him superhuman speed but also other abilities. From this, he actually, with the black matter, turned into a serial killer. And later on down the road, he learned how to create a super serum to gain more speed. And all of you that are fans of the Flash show are aware that it's Velocity Serum, or also known as V9. And so when he did that, he was able to temporarily increase his speeds, but he was also able, for the main substance of the V9, he was able to draw it out of other speedsters from other worlds. So what makes Black Flash and Zoom so lethal is that he comes to Earth 1 and he portrays himself as a good guy. And when he comes to Earth 1 and he portrays himself as a good guy, he's actually the Flash's mentor slash teacher slash friend. And really all he's doing is trying to help the Flash gain speed and get faster, so that later on down the road he can basically try to jack his speed serum from him. So I put him up there at number 2 because if you all are aware, if you've seen him in the TV show, he is literally ruthless, literally a terror for human life and for anybody or for any other planets. And he was like the first real big challenge that I didn't think that Flash could overcome. And by like outsmarting him, he actually did. He didn't beat Zoom based off of speed or power. He was a bad guy that he had to outsmart in order to win against. Because Zoom was just always 4 or 5 steps ahead of him. So I put him at number 2. If you can read the comics on him or check him out in the TV show, you can actually see that he is definitely one of the top villains in the DC universe. So, number 1, I'm pretty sure all you guys can guess who it is. Hands down, number 1 villain in the DC universe, it's the Joker. I mean, do I even need to say more? Like, let's see, he's been played by Jared Leto, Joaquin Phoenix, Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, Mark Hamill. And I mean, these are some big name actors that have even portrayed and taken on a role as Joker. He for sure is DC's number 1 bad guy. And actually, he was the first villain to ever appear in Batman issue number 1. That released in 1940. So right off the bat, he was the first villain that showed up in the first comic book series of the first Batman issue, number 1. I mean, he's the villain that made green hair and white makeup very popular. And also, too, what made him so great as a bad guy was that he was just as cunning and smart like the Riddler. But what made him on a new class of a supervillain was that he really didn't have a end game. He just did bad to do bad. And he was a guy that wasn't in it for the power, money, or women. He just did it for the sport, which is, oof, I mean, like, you can't even put that into words. That's just a guy being evil to be evil. I mean, his traits are that he's sinister, he's manipulative, he's criminally insane, and probably a genius, all rolled into one. I mean, he was the one villain that brought everything out of Batman, and it took Batman everything in him just to stop him. And Batman always admitted that that was the one bad guy that was the hardest to stop. And even when it came to his sidekicks or other policemen or other superheroes wanting to go after the Joker, he always said, never go towards the Joker by yourself. Always, always, always bring backup with you. So, those are my top 5 DC villains in the DC universe. So, once again, this is Mr. Pop Culture Phenomenon, and if you like the content I put out, please like and subscribe below. But once again, take care and have a nice day. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.